it's a great resource.
It's fantastic, and what you're going to do with it's fantastic. What's it like to see yourself teach, and do you see things that will help you improve different aspects of your teaching? Do you?
Yes and no. If you, I mean, I don't think that's part of the interview. I think it's more your general stuff. Yeah, general interest. If you become too self-conscious of going back and looking at what you did, etc., then it becomes inhibiting. But I have looked at the material, and one of the things I realized was that I sometimes moved too fast. And so I've been aware of that. But the first time I did, I've done it for 2 years now.
Right.
The podcasts I haven't really listened to them, but the webcasts I looked at the first time around. The second time around I didn't really look at them in that much detail. But the first time around I did. And yeah, I picked up nuances and things from the way I moved and that sort of thing. But I think it's quite difficult to then go in thinking about that when you're giving a lecture. I don't, it can be a bit stifling in a sense that then you start to judge, well, am I doing this? And as soon as you start to second guess yourself, then the spontaneity is gone, and the to some extent the dynamic interaction with the students is gone.
The reason and that kind of leads into my first interview question. The reason that I thought about it is you teach a huge amount of students a year, about 1,000 per quarter, I read.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How and they all seem very engaged and motivated when you, and obviously I didn't read 1,000 different student evaluations, but your evaluation numbers are very high for that large of a class. How do you connect with students in such a big class?
The most important thing that I do when I go in there, these are first year students, and I want to make them feel comfortable. And that's my first objective. Once I do that, then my second objective is to go through the material. And I do it in such a way that I'm building a foundation for them. That's what I need to do. It's a first year course. I am not there to show how complex something is. I'm there to actually facilitate what are the key concepts and then how to go about using those key concepts. So I think the students get that. They get that. And whether it's at a subconscious level or a conscious level, they really get it, that I go in there and I'm not there to trick them, in the sense that this is a more advanced material. It's chemistry, not everyone's favorite topic, and my objective is to get them comfortable with it, such that they'll be okay asking questions, whether it's in class or after class, office hours, VOH, etc. So I use a lot of resources, virtual office hours, over 1,000 questions a year combined for all my classes. So, I have about, depending, up to 30, certainly if I include the tutors as well, over 30 teaching assistants and tutors. And again, they're a very integral part of what I do. It's real important that they see I'm focused on it, and when everything is organized and it really helps them and the students know what's going on, I make sure at the very beginning, long before the class starts, before the quarter starts, that things are organized. So the organization makes it possible such that when it comes to contact time, that isn't the time to be sorting out schedules. That's already all being done beforehand. So
one of the things that I was really taken back by was that your exams are not multiple choice. And that was exactly one of my questions. How many TAs do you have, and how do you offer, that's a very ambitious type of exam for such large numbers. Why did you choose to do that, and how do you accomplish it?
Well, again, the way I'm doing the teaching is that when I'm teaching, I'm totally focused on that, in that it really is my highest priority. So in a sense, the larger classes are a challenge in that if I had a smaller class, I might be more willing to say, well, I don't really need to put as much attention on my teaching for that quarter because I only have X number of students, etc. So the large classes can be a benefit, and I think in my case is a benefit, in that it really says I need to dedicate all my resources to that. I need to focus on that. In terms of the teaching assistants, I have about, well, in the fall, let's give me specific examples. This last fall I had 15 teaching assistants, and I had about 7 tutors. And I include the tutors because I meet with them, just like I meet with my TAs. What is, in terms of, you're asking how many TAs, again, my job before the quarter starts is to make sure that everything is going to be running smoothly so that they are not bogged down in administrative burden. I tell my teaching assistants and not so much the tutors, because they are really running to some extent independently of me. They see me during the quarter for, it's a fun get-together, and they have questions about the content of the course. But in terms of administrative type questions, scheduling office hours, discussion sections, review sessions, I want my TAs to have quality time with the students. I don't want them battling with getting classrooms or this or that. That's my job, because I can pick up the phone and say, we need this, we need this, we need that. And so over the years, everyone knows that my requests are reasonable and they are also well organized. I don't do last minute unreasonable requests. So everything is done really in advance. When I mean advanced, my midterm dates for the fall are already scheduled. So my students, before they enroll, already know what the midterm dates are. And again, that's that they are informed and everyone else is informed. The rooms, the reservation of the rooms is already, it's scheduled. These, I need X number of large lecture halls. So that then takes some of the administrative pressure away from the teaching assistants, so that they go into discussion sections knowing that they can focus on the material. They can and the same with myself. When I go into lecture, I am not having to really discuss any kind of, at least I hope not, discuss administrative glitches or problems or whatever. We go in there and we discuss chemistry, and that's the objective, and the same in my office hours, etc. Because when you are dealing with such a large number of students, the worst thing you can have is people not knowing what's going on, or feeling, even if they just feel, even if things are known, but for some reason it hasn't been communicated through whatever medium. And I use several mediums in class, online, email. So there's multiple ways or mediums that I communicate what's going on. And as I said, the most important things in terms of the scheduling, etc., is all done before the quarter starts. And in many cases, even before the students enroll, they can see what the schedule is going to be.
When I hear the name Laurence Lavelle, from being at OID so long, I think of technology. You incorporate a lot of technology, and I was shocked to see that you were using virtual office hours since 1997. So
correct,
that was
yeah.
Cutting edge.
Correct, yeah. Yeah.
Talk about your use of technology and why it's important to you.
It's important to me because there are several reasons. One is...
Can I stop you? Can you say the use of technology?
Yeah, sure. I've adopted technology since I started teaching here back in 1997 because it assists me and it assists my students. The technology, to some extent, can be there just for communicative purposes, the type of things to do with when are certain things happening, administrative type things, which I've mentioned already. But the technology also allows me to provide additional resources. Students, people have different comfort levels with different ways of interacting and learning. And so for a student who is in class and intimidated by a large class, again, my goal at the very beginning, make it a very clear, and it's not something you announce. You can't announce these things. You have to just work at it, is to make them feel comfortable in the classroom. But even then, there are a lot of students in my lectures. My lectures are popular, and so having online resources where a student can say, you know what, I really do want to ask this question, but I didn't feel comfortable asking it at the end. There were 3 other questions at the end of class, or there were so many students in Dr. Lavelle's office hours, and they all seem so smart. And whatever it is they're thinking, they can ask questions through different mediums until they perhaps become more comfortable and gain more confidence to actually ask it in office hours. Now, I have office hours. My TAs have office hours. In fact, combined, we have every week 33, depending on how many teaching assistants I have, but we have about 33 office hours per week, physical office hours. But in addition to that, I use virtual office hours, VOH. And as you mentioned, I've used that since '97, back when perhaps some people were just starting to use email. And the benefit with virtual office hours is that a student can ask a question, but it actually is, it's informative for them, because for a student to sit down and type a question up in a language that for them is different, so it's a science language, the language of chemistry, they have to think about what they're going to say. So they've already done that. And they're also comfortable asking a question because they're not sitting in a room with many other students, or they really are stuck and for them it's 2 in the morning and they really would like to know what the answer for this is, whatever concept or homework problem they're struggling with. So I think VOH is a very useful resource for students, and that's why I've adopted it. It's now 12 years I've been using that, and it also communicates to me some things that students are struggling with. And so over the years, especially early on, I would pay attention to that, and I've incorporated where students, you generally see trends where the students are having some difficulty with a particular section or particular concept, and so you say, well, I need to rephrase something, I need to say something more about that the next time I do it, or in a review session, etc. So I think that the technology is beneficial, but at the same time, it mustn't be overused, in the sense that I actually do not use the technology, coming back to something you had mentioned, testing, multiple choice testing. I prefer not to use technology for testing. And the reason for that is, the topics that we're doing involve concepts and calculations, and sometimes it's instructive for a student to sketch a diagram or have even an incomplete equation, but we can see what it is the student was thinking as a conceptual framework. And what we do is we give partial credit. And yes, I have 15 teaching assistants to help with the grading. But what I do, my job is really to set an exam that is representative of what we have covered, and then to set an answer key that is a step-by-step, what are the likely steps you're likely to see, and how would we deal with the partial credit. So I will discuss with my TAs for about 3 hours before anyone starts any grading how this entire exam, this 2-hour exam, whatever it might be, and we'll go through, and I will have typed up already and assigned partial credit, and then I will ask my TAs for feedback and in fact guidance from them as to how the partial credit should be modified, what other possible answers could we expect, a different way to solve a problem, that's great, a different way to solve a problem, full credit, but the teaching assistants need to be made aware that there might be a different way to do it. And so when you have 12 to 15, or including myself, 16 people discussing the midterm or the final, that's what we do. And so that is where the organization comes in, and it then makes that process, which of course can be tedious, and I'm not saying it isn't, of course it is, but I think the TAs, my TAs, also appreciate that if it was a multiple choice, A through E, student selects one and that's it, it's either right or wrong. I think both myself and the teaching assistants, there's a learning process for us to see what students were doing incorrectly as well as correctly, and even when there was a different way to do it and they come up with a different way to solve a problem, we go, wow, we haven't seen that before, that's novel. Perhaps it's in some way not fully correct, but if we collectively, the 16 of us, have agreed that that is a good answer, then we'll accept that and give credit. So the thing with the using technology for testing is that it can sometimes create this psychological divide, where then technology is associated with something not pleasant. If it's used always as a tool for testing, then actually computers technology is associated with that, and for the students it's a stressful experience. Whereas if you're using technology in terms of a learning experience, like VOH, Virtual Office Hours, or another thing that I do is students use software to build molecules, to look at the shape of molecules. It helps them visualize the shape of the molecules. And for introductory students, this whole concept of visualizing, it's not, whether it's visualizing an equation, or in this case it's structures. Some of them really enjoy it, but they don't realize that they have that potential to really visualize objects and rotate them in their head, in their own mind. And often the software will facilitate that. I can talk about a shape, and I can even draw a shape, but if I draw something that's two-dimensional, it's better for them to see it three-dimensional. So they have their own model building kits, but in addition to that, they have computer software where they can then draw a molecule, see it rotated in 3 dimensions, and then start to interact in terms of finding out more about the molecule, certain characteristics or properties of a particular molecule, etc., and how the shapes of molecules can change and that sort of thing, which isn't for somebody who's starting out. It's just not. It's not part of their everyday experience, and so using technology for that educational process or thought-provoking process is what I really like, as opposed to using it always as a testing medium. I haven't yet, I might, I'm sure maybe some of my teaching assistants would say, could we have some things automated, multiple choice or something? So far, I haven't. And again, you have a team then of people, because even the quizzes, we are all involved. And that's one thing, students also want to know, well, who set this quiz? No one person set this quiz. We all did. And so it also helps and protects my teaching assistants, because they know one person is to blame if they don't like a particular question. But it's also educational for my teaching assistants and myself, and also then it's really the teaching assistants are, they have an interest in the outcome of that test. If it's online and something that they were not a part of, they may not have even seen these questions and answers. How can they assist students with understanding the concepts if they haven't seen the questions and answers? So, and I certainly wouldn't be expecting my teaching assistants to go through hundreds of online multiple choice questions, because I think it would be an experience that would be not motivating for them to do. Let's put it that way. Whereas if somebody's involved in the process, they're more likely to stay involved, and that means when a student does well in a quiz, fine. When a student struggles with a quiz or a particular question, since that TA has in some way, I can't say for all quizzes, but all of us have certainly discussed the quizzes, since we have openly discussed what our philosophy is here in terms of partial credit, in terms of the objective of the question, why a certain question I might feel is too hard, or perhaps there are too many questions emphasizing one concept, etc. The teaching assistant then has an interest in the outcome, and that can be missing with using online or packaged testing, which is becoming more and more available. It certainly makes the grading very efficient. It's instantaneous grading, and the answer's right there. I think there's a place for that when students are using it as a way to prepare. Certainly, and I have that. I just don't incorporate it into my grading structure. So I do use, just to elaborate a bit on that, I do have Mastering Chemistry is an online resource that students can use that to go through questions and see answers, and that is packaged, online testing. But I don't use it. I don't use all the quizzes are written. Students write the answers midterm, the same with the final. One of the things I do to make it easier for my teaching assistants, because again there's so many students, a large number of students, one of the things I have done from the very beginning is the students don't hand in homework. So you should be aware that yes, if you think about every quiz being handwritten and graded with partial credit, and the same with midterms and the same with final exams, very time consuming, both in preparing, administering, and then grading, and then feedback to the students, etc. So what I did was, the homework that is assigned, there are detailed solutions, and so the students have access to those detailed solutions. And what you don't want are myself and teaching assistants every week in some back room grading, spending hours of grading, so when it comes time to actually interact with the students, we're exhausted. Because each week, piles of grading homework when the answers are really available, or can be, let's put it this way, can be made available. And so I have done that, in that the homework is not handed in. That takes a grading burden off teaching assistants and off myself. It also allows the students to collaborate, because if homework is handed in and graded, then that means students really shouldn't be collaborating on the homework. So at what stage do students actually collaborate? At what stage then, if you're doing it already at the homework level, that students don't ask each other for assistance, or ask me, or ask the TAs, if there is this, perhaps it's even implicit, and perhaps it's not even explicit, but an implicit feeling that, well, I'm kind of cheating if my homework is graded and counts towards my grade, and if I'm, asking so-and-so to help me the whole time to do an answer, or even looking at their answer, then it's not a healthy environment. The homework, and I tell the students at the very beginning, the homework is for them to ask questions on VOH. Because imagine if we have students asking hundreds of questions on VOH, and we've got to try and remember which are homework problems and which aren't, and then we have to say, well, sorry, I can't really answer that because the homework hasn't been handed in. No way. We answer all questions, lectures, discussion sections, office hours, VOH, etc., etc., etc. I want the students to collaborate with each other. I joke with them that when they're waiting in line for a movie, and it's such a popular movie, they've got a half an hour wait, they can ask each other about the homework problems. They get a good laugh from that. But that's what I want the homework to do. I want it to facilitate them interacting with us, with the TAs, and with each other, and working through the homework. Now, they're first-year students. So what I also do is each midterm and final has one question that will come out of the homework. There will be one question, word for word, number for number, right out of the homework. However, my classes typically have about 200 homework problems per quarter. So in a 10-week period, there are 200 homework questions. Now some are very short, a couple of minutes, and some can take an hour, but there are about 200. And I certainly would not want my teaching assistants really wasting their time going through the homework. The students must be mature enough to go through the homework. And they know that about my courses. They know. You ask a student asks me, what must I do to feel comfortable in what I should expect in a midterm or a quiz or a final exam? And I tell them the homework. There's no, it can appear very different, but if the homework ranges from very introductory to medium to more advanced, and if a student is comfortable with all those levels, then that student is comfortable going into a quiz, a midterm, and a final. So the students know, the word gets out that you really do need to do the homework if you want to do well. And yet it's not graded.
The chair of your department in the nominating letter mentioned that your, would like to look at the exact quote, but I know it contained the word rigorous.
Mm-hmm.
And it also, the sentence also said there was no grade inflation, which you're also very popular in students clearly like from
Mm-hmm.
their evaluations.
Mm-hmm.
That goes against a lot of the, I think, are myths about evaluation and teaching, and you can't be a tough teacher and a tough grader and get strong evaluations, but you do. Why do you think that is? And are you a rigorous grader?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So on the topic of rigor, well, it's a chemistry course, and that alone, students would feel that makes it rigorous. Just saying it's a chemistry course, that alone qualifies it as a rigorous course. But yes, even within the sciences, my courses are considered rigorous. When there are 200 or over 200 homework questions in a 10-week period, that's rigorous. When there are multiple quizzes, now the quizzes are 40 to 50 minutes. For some people, that's more like a midterm. My midterms are 2 hours. My final is 3 hours. But in the midterm and the final, when I say 2 hours and 3 hours, I do it in such a way that they have 2 hours for the midterm, but it's really a 1.5 hour exam. And in the final, they have 3 hours, but it's really a 2 hour exam. But on the topic of rigor and students enjoying a course, I think students enjoy a course when they see somebody who is really there to enjoy the process of working through material. I think they also appreciate the challenge that if you make it clear to them that if you work hard, you will be rewarded. And I even make it clear to the students who do struggle with chemistry, that we have students with different chemistry backgrounds, different high school experiences. And for some students, they might be, absolutely doing fantastic week 1. And for other students, it might be week 3. For other students, week 8. Now, that's getting pretty late into the quarter. But I think students, they really get it when somebody is not trying to make things difficult for them just for the sake of making it difficult. If you do that, then that course gets a bad image. Oh, well, it's just ridiculously hard, and even if you understand the material, and even if you know what's going on, 40% of the class are going to fail anyway, and that's just his or her attitude. That's and that's not what I do. These are first-year students. They're very apprehensive. My objective, as I said, is to make them feel comfortable, to make it a learning experience where they can interact with anyone. I do that by not having the homework graded. So there's already this this open environment for understanding the material. And I think they appreciate that. So I don't think, I think going back to the question of how does one end up with students appreciating or enjoying a course, and yet it's a rigorous course, or as students say, a hard course. I think students, there's the flip side to that. I think students can also feel that a course, if it's easy and there's grade inflation, then they haven't been challenged. And if they haven't been challenged, then they haven't got as much out of it. And that will, I think, perhaps follow through in the evaluations of that course. If it's a course where a student starts off thinking, wow, this is going to be hard, this is a tough course, this is a rigorous course, and then they see that it doesn't mean that I have to be mean, it doesn't mean my teaching assistants have to be mean, that's not what we're about. But at the same time, there needs to be quality content, and I think students really have, students have said to me, I wasn't very good at problem solving, and through taking your course, yes, it's chemistry content, but I see when there's a page that's blank and there's a question, because these are not multiple choice, and you've shown us in class how to step by step read something, what does that mean, how would you use it, etc., and break something down into, for the student, parts that they can deal with, and then start to see how the parts come together to then have a complete in-depth answer to a question. I think they appreciate that. So I think it follows through in their evaluations that they'll say, wow, this, I was really expecting just blood and guts and awful, and I realized it was hard work, but at the same time there was a reward in that I was able to challenge myself and come through. And so obviously there's a distribution to everything, but yes, the rigor doesn't mean that course evaluations are going to be low.
Chemistry students, science students, chemistry, it's a very hard-working, competitive group of students, but they say have the reputation for that. A lot of them want to get into medical school and such. Do you teach both non-majors and majors?
I have in the past.
Are most of them
currently
science majors?
Yes, they're life science majors. Yeah. So I have taught our senior level, mostly graduating fourth year, third and fourth year biochemistry students, our physical biochemistry 156. I taught it about 4 or 5 years in a row, but it's been a long time since I've taught that. So my focus, my more recent focus, and for some time now, has been the general chemistry courses, the chemistry 14A and 14B, our introductory chemistry courses, which are typically taken by life science majors. So they are science majors, but they are not physical science majors, and chemistry falls under physical science. So they are typically not chemistry majors. So there is a balance where I am fortunate in that a lot of these students, being pre-med and pre-dental, they're hard-working, but at the same time, chemistry is not their major. They have a life science major. So that's certainly, teaching at UCLA makes it enjoyable in that I can set high standards for myself, and in doing so, set high standards for my teaching assistants and my students, and we can all enjoy the process. And that's because we have good students. Again, my students are typically, well, they are life science majors, but they are also a lot of pre-med and pre-dental, etc. But students can switch. Students can take Chem 14A and B, and in fact, I started a book award that just to encourage students to, as a way to communicate to them that being in the so-called hard sciences doesn't mean that you're a hard person. And so to encourage them that if, since we have these smart students going up to neuroscience and genetics and etc. and molecular biology, we want some to do chemistry as well. So even though these are students who are thinking they're not going to major in chemistry, I get converts but it's no overt pressure from me. They just see that this is an interesting topic and they want to pursue it in more detail. Whether they actually major in chemistry or just do more chemistry courses than they were thinking they were going to do, it's fine. I don't have my courses are also designed to incorporate life science examples and examples in industry and environment, etc.
Wish my daughter took your course. Bombed out of chemistry at USC.
I interact with people and in our community, and they go, "Oh, chemistry, oh, terrible."
Well, it's so different in college. Oh, let's see. I have some. You've hit a lot of the questions I had. One thing that I thought was interesting is you have literally thousands of students, and clearly a heavy teaching load. But you chose to teach a Fiat Lux.
Mm-hmm.
What attracted you to the Fiat Lux, and why? And what's the difference? There's huge differences, obviously. But if you talk about that.
Yeah. Right. So we've been talking about these very large required first-year chemistry courses that students have to take for their majors, and many of them are not chemistry majors. Yet they end up enjoying the course, working hard and enjoying it. I've mentioned some of the things that I need to do at the beginning of each quarter, and that is to make the students feel comfortable and have it a respectful environment for everyone, including how they interact with each other and how they interact with the TAs and myself, etc. And I have to follow that example. I can't just say it and then not interact in a respectful way with them, etc. But the courses that I'm teaching have a syllabus, and it's also it's my responsibility that we cover the syllabus. There are 4 courses in the sequence, the 14, the chemistry, introductory chemistry, Chem 14, A, B, C, D. And there are certainly times when I feel, well, maybe we could just ease off and not do this section. And I've never done that. So what I need to do is go through the material, but not necessarily make it look like to them that, we're doing this page this day, and it was, there has to be ebb and flow in terms of how the course is going for a particular day or week. But given when you get a lot of experience, I can now tell with a course that I've taught several times, without having any notes in it, I can more or less tell if I am within 1 or 2 pages of being ahead or behind. And sometimes I'm ahead. And it's just the way it's flowing, and it's great, but it is a syllabus that has certain requirements that I need to, and the students don't know. They think I decide everything, and I wish I could. But the syllabus is a fixed syllabus, and I feel obligated to the students to cover that syllabus. Just like if a student was doing languages, if just to pick very introductory sort of language introduction, if they'd only done nouns and not verbs, and they're going to a course which is now expecting them to have done both nouns and verbs, and they haven't, then it really isn't going to work very well for the students, and the students are going to feel cheated because the next class can say, well, you've done nouns and verbs, and we haven't, we've done some, So I really emphasize covering the syllabus. That has always, for me, been a bit frustrating in that I can't deviate. I can deviate in terms of presenting it and examples, but it's the same content. It's concepts. The concepts sometimes can make me think about things differently even though I'm teaching the same material. But doing an honors section, honors lectures or Fiat Lux, is fantastic for me. It's almost a reward for me because I can do what I want. I don't have a fixed syllabus where I know I have to get through bonding, quantum mechanics, acid-base chemistry, etc., whatever the particular modules are, topic modules that I need to get through in the first year syllabus. My honors seminar lectures, it's what I think is fun. In fact, they tend to be, honors is always associated with being more rigorous. And the funny thing is that in anything that's an introductory topic, whether it's introductory Spanish or French or German, you've got to learn the language. You've got to put the foundation, the vocab, the words. Only then can you have fun with it and putting the sentences together and really starting to feel comfortable with it. First year chemistry, certainly the first 2 quarters that I'm teaching, we're really putting together some very basic concepts, the building blocks. And what that does is that it limits my ability to, I try to, of course, in my lectures to show applications, be it batteries or LCD screens with computers or whatever it might be. I try to mention it, but I can really only mention things and so they can see there is a relationship between what we've just done, perhaps very dry and boring. It has, if you take it to the next or several levels higher, it has something that is of interest to them, be it a biological system or environmental topic, acid rain, or pollution, or computers, etc. Materials used for hard drives, etc. What I can do in the honors seminars is say, we're going to discuss acid rain. We're going to discuss what are the different types of batteries. You've been buying AA and AAA batteries, and some of you are using a notebook right now, and it's got a battery. What is different from that battery from the battery that's in your car? We've done electrochemistry in the regular class. It's been all this about how to understand the flow of electrons and the electron pulling potential of the positive electrode and pulls the electrons towards it, and there's this voltage difference and we can utilize it and as the electrons flow through the circuit. We've done all that. Now let's do the application part, which I can't always do and I shouldn't be doing because I'm giving a foundation. Just like in a language course, it'd be very nice to read French poetry or whatever it might be, but you can't. You have to do the foundation first. So I do that, and that then for my honors seminars allows me to do topics of interest. The Fiat Lux was a little different. You mentioned the Fiat Lux. Why did I do that? I did that because that even gives me even more freedom than an honors lecture seminar series. There, the students in a Fiat Lux actually do not need to or are obliged in any way to complete anything. In my honors seminars, I pick whatever topics I want, be they environmental or some biological application that's relevant to what we've done in the regular lecture class. But I still feel if it's honors, there is supposed to be, yes, it's more interesting, but there's got to be some rigor. And so there are midterms. I have to have midterms and finals, and there are some more challenging calculations and that sort of thing. That's part of the honors. Fiat Lux, very different. My Fiat Lux had no exams whatsoever. It was about going into a room and discussing and letting them discuss things. And the way I structured it was that I asked faculty in my department to talk about a particular topic. Usually I said, you pick whatever topic. And of course, it would make sense they would pick a topic that would be related to their research. And that's the way I structured it. And so the students had in that Fiat Lux seminar series, it was, the name I forget, it was Chemistry as a Foundation for Research. So again, it wasn't chemistry, it was a foundation for research in all the sciences, materials, whether they be biological materials or industrial materials. It's understanding of chemical concepts, chemistry, for many branches of science. And what they had there were 2 or 3 faculty in every seminar sitting in with them, and the faculty person was discussing a topic, and I would ask questions, and sometimes myself and another faculty member would discuss a topic, and the students would ask questions, and there was no testing whatsoever. And that is the uniqueness of the Fiat Lux. It's honors. There is still it is meant to be perhaps a some people would interpret it as being perhaps a more rigorous part of a regular course, whereas the Fiat Lux is really open to whatever somebody wants to do, and it's meant to be, in fact, quite different, because the students here at UCLA do a lot of courses with a lot of demands, a lot of, be it term papers and exams, whatever, and the Fiat Lux is meant to be, this is a glimpse into what is really going on when you see people discussing a topic. These are people who have many years of specialized knowledge, and they openly discuss a topic. That's really important in education. It's not so much, I mean, I'd like to think that, yes, there are chemistry topics or foundations that a student should know the basics. But a lot of the time it's realizing that science isn't separate from any other topic. I include anything that psychology, if it's using a methodology that is testing and questioning and saying, well, what validation do we have to think that this model is valid? When I say validation, experimental validation. Are we going to test it? If one goes back to the history of science, science at a time was really, there was a certain time in history when it became this novelty of, there could be these concepts, and the novelty, the big change was when, well, let's test. Let's actually go and do an experiment, as opposed to philosophizing or having models. It was actually, no, we need to go and collect some data to see, does it fit with what somebody is thinking or a group of people are thinking. And so the scientific method is really, it's not about science, be it chemistry, physics. It's about questioning and being open to questioning something and discussing something and saying, well, that used to be what we thought, but now there's some additional detail. And that additional detail is influencing our model. We've got to change things slightly. Sometimes the changes are big, but it's really the scientific inquiry of open discussion and the realization that maybe we don't have the full picture, and we need to be creative in trying to find out what that is.
Well, you put in your teaching statement that what you referred to as the importance of interpersonal interactions. Why are interpersonal interactions important to a large chemistry class?
Well, multiple answers to that question. Why are interpersonal interactions important in a large chemistry class? I think they're important in any educational institution. We are not an online university. Students are coming here physically, coming to lectures as a part of the human physical interaction. And so there is a big difference between online distance learning and being part of a process where there's an interactive discussion of a topic. Maybe not everyone in the room is verbally involved at the same time, but they are there and watching and seeing and learning more than just the content, or hearing more, picking up, shall we say, more than just the content. So perhaps my educational background is a little different. There's I think more systematic or standardized testing here, and that has some benefits, but at the same time, if a student or a person thinks that the educational process is just knowing the answer to a question, then there's something missing. And so when I say the interpersonal interaction, there's one very selfish reason. I want to enjoy the process of going to work every day. I don't want to be fighting with students. I don't want to be fighting with my TAs. I want to enjoy it. It's the only way I can do this for as many years as I have and still be here. Okay, so I want to enjoy the process. What are the things I need to do to make it an enjoyable process for me and for the others involved, the students and teaching assistants? But at the same time, it's also important in an educational environment. If one goes through an educational environment which was very strict, and perhaps even in some cultures, certainly in the past, and not that far in the past, a student who failed a test in high school, let's say, or in junior school, could actually be physically caned. Right? We find that a bizarre concept, now. But at the same time, let's remove the very obvious physical aspect of that example, but let's go to an environment where the learning environment is one of interaction and discussion and human interaction, discussing something in a mature and a thoughtful way, in a respectful way. There, the student isn't just picking up the contents, that is the factual contents of a particular course. They're picking up skill sets that they will use to their advantage, to their benefit, to society's benefit. They will pick up skills that will benefit them, whatever they're doing. What are those skills I'm talking about? I'm talking about a comfortable interaction, discussing ideas, realizing from both from my viewpoint and their viewpoint that if something isn't clear, I need to re-express it. And for them to realize that knowledge isn't this, they come out of high school and think knowledge is this static thing. And if you learn the textbook, you're done, you're good. You can go for the rest of your life and never have to learn a thing. That isn't the case. It's a process that I hope will be enjoyable, so they will want to do it for the rest of their life, not just my course. I don't typically think about these things. I usually typically think about just my course, but if you ask me why is it important for the interaction between all interactions of my class, my students, myself, my teaching assistants, why do I think that's important? Well, I think an environment that is supposedly one where it is hard topics, students are going to be for the rest of their life dealing with hard topics, and I hope they will have had some experience of dealing with hard topics, and yet it doesn't have to be conflict. It doesn't have to be there is only one way, or and certainly in chemistry, students expect there always to be a very clear answer, and you point out sometimes that there is an answer, but there's perhaps more than just that one answer. So it's a skill set that I want them to develop in terms of how they go about thinking about education. I don't mean this is not something I usually even discuss with my TAs. Maybe I might mention something. I certainly mention to them, my teaching assistants. Even though we talked earlier on, you asked about the demands of having large numbers of students and by implication, teaching assistants having a lot of grading, because I don't use multiple choice, etc. I have more teaching assistants wanting to teach with me than I can accept, and that is because it's an enjoyable experience for them. It's still hard working, but they also know that I appreciate their hard work. So it's I don't think perhaps hard work isn't even the word I should be using. I think people just appreciate a challenge and an environment that makes it a pleasant pathway, pleasant process, and navigating that pathway or experiencing it is worthwhile in and of itself, meaning not just the content, the knowledge, chemistry content.
What made you, was there something in particular that made you interested in the teaching side of chemistry?
No, I'd never planned this. No, I never thought I'd be so involved in terms of the educational aspect of chemistry or anything in particular. I certainly have my own preference for how I like to interact in terms of discussing topics. I don't like aggressive environments, so that is just a personal trait, and one that perhaps is can be a downfall in a challenging field and in what can be perceived as an aggressive field. But I don't think that's unique to chemistry. I think it's unique to any field where there's a lot of competition. But no, I never thought 20 years ago that this is my career path. I want to be giving great lectures or doing what it is I'm doing now. It's something that has evolved, and I think there was a time. What really, what was really something that changed for me was that I want whatever it is I'm doing, I want it to be enjoyable. And a challenge can be enjoyable. So it doesn't necessarily mean, just sitting around and having fun in a very sort of a student type meaning of what fun might be. But I think I think if you enjoy interacting with people and have just a general respect for people, then it comes through in whatever it is you're doing. But I certainly didn't even think I had particularly good skill sets for, if somebody had asked me along, when I was a grad student or even a postdoc, do I have strong skill sets for walking into a classroom with 300 to 400 and sometimes even more than 400 students, and the place is just covered in backpacks and there's just this mass out there? I would have said, oh no, you got the wrong person. So I've been challenged by it from the very beginning. I walked in and, wow, this is very different. My objective has always been to make the process a pleasant one. And maybe I wanted to do that from the beginning because I was apprehensive. I didn't have the skill sets. I thought, well, I need to do something here. I can't just pretend, well, it's just me working at the board. It's not the same situation. Figuring something out at your desk is not the same environment as communicating concepts to students. So I have learned along the way, and I think will continue to learn along the way. It's a two-way process.
How do you learn? Hit and miss, or trial by error, or you read books or on pedagogy, or?
I've had a very diverse, so going back to what do I use or what have I used in the past for my own guidance as to how do I improve my teaching ability or lecture ability or interacting with students, etc. I have taught at the University of Cape Town. I was an undergraduate there, so that's a different environment as well. But it's a university educational learning experience like here. I've taught at the University of Witwatersrand in Johannesburg in South Africa. I've taught at Stony Brook, sunny Stony Brook, Long Island, and I taught at Princeton University. I have 5 degrees, so I have quite a diverse educational background. I have a bachelor's degree in chemistry and with a major and a minor in microbiology and physical oceanography. I almost went into physical oceanography. I thought it was great. But I felt more comfortable with chemistry, so I carried on with that. I have a master's in MSc in physical chemistry, and then I always had a leaning towards sort of the life sciences, but when I was an undergraduate in the 80s, there weren't as many opportunities. I mean, certainly biochemistry was there, and microbiology. I did a minor in that. But I wanted to do what I thought was a sort of more fundamental, and so I did the chemistry. But once I'd done the master's, I did a BSc, then an honors, and then I did a master's in MSc. I thought I wanted to do something different, and I wasn't sure what, and so I applied overseas and was accepted to Princeton University in their molecular biophysics program, and that was quite a big change for me. I had done some, as an undergraduate, some life science courses, at least courses with some sort of biology content or biochemistry content, but it had been quite a few years, and I really wanted to use concepts, physical concepts, but apply them to what I thought was more interesting applications, biological systems, biological, or at least topics that are directly related to biological systems. And so I applied there, and I then did my MA and PhD, and so I had to do another master's and in molecular biophysics. That means I've gone not only different universities but different continents, and I've had different educational experiences, and I've seen different lecture styles. When one of my brothers was at Harvard doing his advanced MBA, he was in the program. I was a grad student at Princeton. I wasn't teaching at the time. I had done, I'd been a teaching assistant for a year, and then over the course of my PhD, I did probably the equivalent of 2 years of being a teaching assistant. But I went up to Harvard, and I sat in on some of his lectures, and they were so different. They were so different. They were really more like the style that I use in my classes, in that you don't face the board, you face the audience, and you interact with the audience, the students. And yes, you must have materials, you must be prepared. It was very obvious to me that these people who are giving these, it was certainly a higher level course, and that people were going in there already with a pretty strong background, and it was there to discuss. And I saw that as a different learning environment where it isn't just somebody going through verbatim how to do something, it's interactive, and I have tried to do that, even though I'm teaching a very different topic. It's not international politics or international finance or whatever it was, the lectures that I sat in. That's let's see, that's about 16 years ago. But I came away from that saying, wow, that was different. I like that. And that, so I picked it up, and I've had to, of course, combine it with my own experience from my own many courses that I've done in the sciences with different teaching styles. And so I've been influenced by those. Certainly Luigi Nascimbini at the University of Cape Town. I think I've probably picked up some of his teaching style, and his teaching style is also very interactive. But going back to the MBA program at Harvard, I just sat in on a couple of lectures, and I liked the way they did it, where it was more interactive. And so I try to incorporate that in my lectures, where I'm interactive with the students. Yes, there are things on the board I'm writing, but I'm really interacting with them. I'm not interacting with the board, just in my own world of equations and molecular structures and that sort of thing.
We're about finished, but I did, how do you interact with students when there's so many of them in a classroom?
What do you mean by that?
Well, in a seminar, it's easy to have a back and forth.
Yes, right. So certainly, my office hours, sometimes there's 10 students, sometimes there's 20 students, but for me, that's a small group. It's completely interactive, completely, and it's I think most of the time I'm at the board, because again, it's introductory. It's unfair of me to say to them, oh, well, you show me. I can do that sometimes as part of the, I'll do something, I'll say, well, what step do you think would be needed next? And so they're part of the process of whatever it is we're discussing, solving a problem. And the same in discussion sections, so there's small groups. But in my lectures where there's 300 students sitting there, it can't be interactive to the same extent. It's just not possible. It doesn't work. There has to be the environment. I have to create an environment where the students can feel comfortable asking questions. But at the same time, it wouldn't work with that number of students if everyone asked a question. There'd be too many interruptions. So I typically will leave time at the end of class to say any questions. But even then, students will ask questions during the lecture, and I will answer them, and I'll incorporate their question into, well, we're about to do the next step, and you'll see that the next step will answer your question. So I want them to feel comfortable asking questions. It's obvious to everyone in that room that not everyone can ask questions. But in terms of interacting, when I say I'm interacting with the students, I'm not standing behind a podium. In fact, you had asked me earlier on to do with my lectures are recorded, audio-visual video recording, and when I looked at them initially, I realized, wow, I was sort of running around, and that's because I'm interactive. I'm trying to give the communicate to them. I'm not behind a lecture podium. I'm not behind a lecture desk. I don't have notes in front of me. I have notes. I use the board. I have notes on a audio visual. But I'm the one. And sometimes I'm writing something, and sometimes I'm referring to something, and I'm saying, let's read this and see what it's saying. And so I'm actually standing with them, almost in the first row, reading it as they're reading it, and saying, okay, well, what did that tell us? We've gone through these concepts. Now we're doing a problem. We're doing an example. What did that tell us? Can we use it? Well, we're not sure. Let's see what the next part of this problem is. We've given 3 lines of information. How is this tying? What section does it relate to? Let's start with the basics. How do these sentences relate to each other? This concept here, is it related to that? And so I will, when I say interact with them, I'm trying to show the material from their eyes. Not that they are asking me questions. Yes, they can, but it's limited given the large size of the class. But what I do is I make the material interactive such that I'm presenting in such a way that I'm anticipating some of the questions they might have. And it's part of the lecture style, the communication style, the analysis of something, and I'm analyzing it with them. and that's part of it. That's that's one part of what I do.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah. And that's what I do. And I don't know if I've ever read anything about that. I just picked that up. I mean, at the beginning it wasn't easy. It was a struggle for me, and I've had to piece together how it's done. But I think also, having gone to good universities, I've been exposed to, at least to some extent, good educational environments, and hopefully I can contribute to that.
Let me just make sure I didn't skip anything. Bill, did anything come to mind that I have missed that you'd like to ask?
Not that you missed, but you have to answer answer the question. But you describe the planning that goes into one of these big lecture classes when you're organizing a class, and the numbers of people that you have to marshal, and the resources and all this. It sounds like you're planning an invasion or an expedition or something like that.
My TAs sometimes think, boy, we heard good things. It sounds like he's planning a military operation week one, but that's what I do.
Right.
And that I have to do that.
My question is, how do you keep that from taking over? There's many other not more important, but many other important things that you have to think about how you're going to structure the class, and how you're going to present the material, and how you're going to capture the student's attention, and so forth. How do you balance between this organization on one hand and the content of the course on the other hand?
Okay. I'm ready to answer that.
Okay.
So returning to the large number of students and the organization that is a necessity for any class like this, if it's going to be a good class, let's put it that way. And I would say that means an enjoyable experience for both myself and my students, a learning environment, and we get through the material. I have to plan in advance, and I have experience of what are the potential pitfalls, etc., etc. So, for example, for the last 5 years, I have incoming students. These are first years. My class websites are up and running a month before lectures start. And the reason I do that is so that I have taken care of the handouts, the outlines, the weekly outlines. There are multiple levels of outlines. There's the syllabus. That's one. That's just an overview. Then there's the weekly outline and it's not really weekly. It's really a topic outline, because some topics are less than a week and some are more than a week. But a topic outline. By what date I'm expecting certain things to be covered, etc. That is done before I even meet my teaching assistants. That is the way I prefer to do it. The reason why I prefer to do it is I'm not comfortable. Some people enjoy a bit of chaos, and it sort of motivates them or gets them activated. I'm activated enough. I don't need any more activation or stimulation. I need organizations that I can enjoy the process when it happens. That's what I need. And how I do that is by going through all the things I need to do, having my website up and running so that students who haven't yet even come to UCLA can go online and they can see what we're going to be covering. What is the textbook? What's the breakdown of the course? I have students emailing me in June saying, I am so thrilled, and I'm in high school, and I really want to know, and that's great. But given the large number of students, there's a certain limit as to when I'm ready to start, and so I really get my website. That's using technology at its best. All this communication is out there. That takes the burden off me and my TAs when it comes to contact time. Because instead of me and my TAs having to rush around for just a couple of days before and the whole week, or even the first 2 weeks of class, given how many students there are, and we're doing all these admin things, we can, when that student walks in day one, be it my lecture, or be it teaching assistants in their discussion section or their office hours, it is an environment where it's welcome, and this is what we're going to be doing, and we're pleased you're here, and so it's a welcoming, warm environment. That's what I enjoy, and therefore I expect others to enjoy it, and that's what I do. But to do that, I have to be organized. I am not, and I've got a lot of experience now, and there were certainly years where I just felt I was keeping my head above water with the admin and then going into class with a clear head. But as I said, with the focus that I have, I actually prefer to have a heavy teaching load so that I can dedicate my resources to that and be focused on that, and then have parts of the year where I have no teaching. So I'm in a totally different mindset. And so I will actually take on additional teaching when I am teaching, so that I can have times when I can then, in a very different, be in my own environment where it's to do with writing, because I'm involved in writing, be it research. I'm involved in research. I'm involved I'm a co-author on a solutions manual, study guide for instructors as well as students. I'm involved in other educational projects. We were talking earlier on one that I'm soon going to be involved in, the editing of my lectures. I have to have quality time when I'm teaching, but also quality time when I'm not, to do these other projects. I've now got to the stage that even if there is a glitch, I can still go into class, and walking into class is a pleasant experience. So actually, whatever glitches are going on that have happened administratively, they actually will leave my thought process, and I'm going to enjoy the lecture instead. At least I hope that's always the case. Day to day it can vary, but one should not underestimate that at this level, when you have 1,000 students, 12 to 15 teaching assistants, underestimate what it is you want to do. But it depends on the individual. Some individuals will take a much more relaxed approach. I actually will do physical exercise in the summer so that I'm in good health for the fall and the winter, because that is my heavy teaching. That's the extent. I will get flu shots the week they come out. I need to get flu shots, because if things unravel when you've got those kind of demands going on, it can be difficult. So I want to enjoy the process. I do that by being prepared and being focused on it, and knowing that if I've really done additional work, I can also have quality time to do other academic work. And I think that comes through in the teaching. I think if somebody is only involved in one activity, it becomes monotonous and dry, and after you've done it for several years, you have to enjoy the process, because it's really the process. I mean, the material at this stage, I think I know, but you have to enjoy the process, and you also have to have other activities, so that when you come back to it, it feels fresh. If you're doing the same thing 12 months of the year, it's not going to be fresh. It's fresh for these students. They will sometimes wonder, why is this person so dull on doing this? Because this person might have been doing this for too long, doing the same activity. And so my academic year, although intense teaching, I also have other parts of the year where I'm doing other activities, and I think that's important. I think that's really important. I think any educational institution that wants to excel needs to realize that people have a craving, it's a human condition, to do things other than just the same thing all the time. That's real important.
It's a very interesting approach, and it does when you were talking about getting ready in the summer and doing your physical shot, I was thinking it's like getting ready to go to war. It's like you're getting ready to
Well, I don't use that war. Did somebody say that? Have that comment? Did a student or a TA use that?
No, you said that somebody said it was like a military.
Oh, it was the organization. Yes,
The
yes. No, it has to be. It has to be because, but it must be done. At the military doesn't. I don't. If I use that word, I just meant efficient. I don't want to use the word military. I prefer to use the word efficient but it's really good. It's good for the teaching assistants. It's good for the students where, things happen and there's no effort, and when things are just this blur, and nobody really knows what's going on administratively, the worst thing you can have is a whole lot of smart people saying, "Oh well, I don't know what's going on, right? I don't know why we're doing this. I don't know. He said he was going to do this. Now he's doing that. He changes his mind. This is what we're doing. We're going to enjoy it. This is, things are organized. What you need to be talking about, I'm talking about really the students now, with the TAs, with the students, you need to be talking about the content, not discussing for 10 minutes when something may or may not occur and why we've changed things. That isn't the case, and in the end it ends up being, there's a higher probability, let's put it that way, of the process being enjoyable and more really what it should be, and that's the content, and not being distracted with administrative problems, which at this university is, you've got to maybe sometimes you do need to have a big stick, like, take the administrative problems away from my teaching assistants. I don't want them having problems. I want them focused on quality time with students. And so I think then people realize that what it is I'm doing, and it's a healthy thing, I hope.
Well, that's what they said in your nominating letter, so I definitely the department understands. So,
Thank you.
This was nice. This was great to hear.
Okay, I need to get you. This is now the sort of the happy instructor receiving awards. So just stay where you are.
Oh, really? I'm receiving it right now. Okay.
No, we're not going to give it to you. But you have to look like you're getting it. Look right into the camera.
Okay.
Smile. Be happy. You're
Okay.
getting an award.
Ah,
This isn't a
great.
flu shot, you're getting an award.
Great, we're getting this award.
Okay.
Okay,
Very
good. Thank
Great,
you.
thanks.
Then.